Yeah, let's kick it off then. Let's just start with AirGap. Do you mind just kind of starting at the beginning? What is the history behind AirGap, and what is the product that you guys built?
Okay, sure. So yeah, let's start at the beginning. AirGap, we started the project about five and a half years ago, so it's already quite some time. And basically, back in the day, there were not many good cold. There was a notification here. There were not many good cold storage solutions available, and especially not air-gapped ones. And for those of you who don't know, air-gapped is basically a term used in the security world, which means that you basically physically separate something, like a network, for example, so it has no access to the internet. So about 5.5 years ago, we started the project, and yeah, in the beginning we started with Bitcoin and Ethereum, and yeah. So for those of you who are not familiar with the project, it's basically it's a mobile app. It's There are two apps. One is called AirGap Vault, and one is called AirGap Wallet. The AirGap wallet is installed on a normal on your normal device. It has internet access. It fetches your balance from the blockchain and so on. So that's what most people know. But AirGap Vault is kind of the special app, which is completely offline and has to be installed on a spare phone. So that spare phone can then be put into airplane mode, and it never again connects to the internet. So you can put your private keys on that offline device, and the two apps communicate via QR codes. So you generate your account on the offline device, and then you share the account with the online device, and from that point forward, you can on the online device see your balance and initiate transactions. And every time you have to sign something, you sign it on the offline device, and the connection happens through QR codes. So that's basically the overview of the project.
That,
Yeah, I think we started, like I mentioned, more than 5 years ago, and since then we added a couple of other blockchains like Polkadot, Tezos, and now the latest integration is ICP, and we're very happy about that one.
so that's pretty interesting because you have a great you have, I mean, in terms of your product, you have you if you want to go with the easy route, the more customer user experience route, people can have essentially store their crypto on their smartphone, which is connected to the connected to the web. It maybe comes with a little bit of security risks with that. But if you want to go the route where your keys are actually completely in cold storage, then you can use essentially, I mean, it sounds like you could just use like an old cell phone, that you're from your previous upgraded cell phone, just put it in airplane mode, take it completely off the grid, and then that kind of acts as your key storage. Is that right?
Yes, that's exactly it. So as you mentioned, we do have like two modes where how you can use it. We don't talk about the one where you have both on the same phone too much, because the security there is only slightly better than regular wallets, because it's still on an online phone. It is a little bit better than most other wallets simply because it's a separate app. And for example, on Android, the app doesn't even have internet permissions. So even if there was some kind of malicious code inside somehow, it couldn't even talk to the internet. Whereas with other apps that have everything in one app, they do need internet permissions. So you do have a little bit better security. But the thing we really want to highlight is, as you mentioned, you can basically use a spare phone and use that as your cold storage device. You put it into airplane mode, and then, yeah, that's basically fully secured by the air gap.
Actually, I remember that you guys were in Zurich a few weeks ago, maybe a few months ago, and I saw a live demo of this of AirGap using ICP, and I think it was just really cool to see the way of you just have the two phones and then use the cameras and the two separate apps, and in a way you can sign these ICP transactions without ever having to have your key or private key compromised. I have one question with regards to this is how do you let's say there is an update in the Vault app, then in that case you would have to go you have to turn on the internet on your phone, Wi-Fi, and then update the app, correct?
Yeah, so it depends on the platform. If you are using iOS, what we recommend is that you basically wipe your phone whenever you do an update. That sounds like a bit extreme, but it's definitely the most secure approach. And also, we usually don't do breaking changes, so you can actually use the same version for a while. It's not like you have to update every week. Of course, if you want the latest features, you do. But on iOS, we basically recommend that, wiping everything and starting from scratch again. But on Android, you can actually, for example, plug in a USB stick which has the updated APK, and then you can install it that way. So you don't have to put your you don't have to connect your phone to the internet to update on Android.
Yeah, that's so Andrew was just mentioning about you guys being in Zurich. So what's kind of the it sounds ICP is one of the first, not the first, but one of your first few integrations. And so how did that come about? How did you guys end up at Zurich, and what's the story there?
Yeah, so most of the development team is based in Switzerland, and we have been following the ICP project for a long time. And yeah, I think recently we have actually only recently started talking to you guys, and I think the interests are very aligned between our projects, so it was a very good fit. And then after our initial talks, I think we basically started with our initial integration, which is what we released now a couple weeks ago. But we are actually kind of planning to work together also in the future. It's not like this is it now, and like there is nothing else to come. We are actually we hope we can work together with you and grow together and basically benefit from each other, because interesting projects like yours, they do need it's always important to have a secure self-custody solution. So it's actually a very good fit where we basically provide the secure storage of your private keys, and you can do the cool stuff on your side.
That's probably a great segue into so why is self custody? I feel like crypto's been talking about this for years, and it almost feels like we have to keep talking about it because the message doesn't necessarily always land. So let's do our public service announcement and talk through like why is self custody important?
Well, I mean, there are many different reasons why self custody is important, but I mean, for example, what recently happened with FTX is a good example. So if you give custody of your funds to someone else, then you just don't know what's going to happen. You basically put the trust into another party, and in some cases that's okay, but it has risks. So you have to be aware of those risks, and traditionally there has not really been an alternative in the traditional banking system. There hasn't really been an alternative to this. You always had to trust someone else. But now with cryptocurrencies, it's basically the first time where you can actually have full self custody, where you are completely in control. So if you go that route and you take the ownership into your own hands, then you are responsible for your funds, but it also means that nobody else can kind of mess with it. It's not possible for someone to just block your accounts, or that one day you you wake up and somehow they froze your accounts and you cannot transfer your funds anymore. That's just not possible with self custody. I think that's probably one of the main points.
And the custodian also can't go bankrupt or gamble your funds away. That's
Yeah, exactly. I mean, you never know what they do with your funds.
exactly. I have a question around. Do you know do you know some details about the technical implementation of how you guys integrated ICP? And can I ask how hard was it to integrate ICP into AirGap?
I didn't work on it myself, but from what I've heard, it was actually quite straightforward. Maybe now I can mention some technical things a little bit because I'm a technical person, so those are the things that excite me a lot. Also, we are actually now working on a technical feature we call isolated modules, which basically means that on a software level, we make sure that all of the different protocols are fully isolated from each other and from the main application, which really increases security, meaning that one protocol cannot interfere with another one. And this is a feature that we have internally been working on for a very long time. And now with ICP, that's basically the first protocol that we directly integrated as such an isolated module. And that allowed us to use your SDKs. And I think it went quite well. I'm not aware of any major issues we had.
Could you give us a hypothetical example of how one protocol could interact with another maliciously, or what could go wrong if you don't have this isolation between them?
Yeah, sure. So, I mean, this is it's. Let me think for a second. So basically, usually you start with the mnemonic, right? So this is like the seed you have where all of your accounts are derived. If you use a multi-chain wallet like AirGap, or also that the same is true for Ledger or Trezor, they derive key pairs from that master seed and for a specific protocol. So like Bitcoin or Ethereum, ICP, and so on. Now, one of the issues is that if the derived key is the same between two protocols, then one protocol could basically access the funds of the other protocol. So what we do with the isolated modules is that the derivation paths that are used, we basically give a warning when the same derivation path is used, that would result in the same key pair. And then the user would basically be warned if two protocols clash. And this is like one part of it. And the other one is that this is not the case right now because all of the modules we have currently are developed by us. But our vision is that we also support community protocols in the future. And then it becomes much more important that the code that is inside such a module cannot kind of break out from the confines of what it's supposed to do things that it shouldn't do. Like, for example, trying to leak the key through various methods. And I'm trying to kind of make it a little less technical, but it's basically just a way of making sure that the code concerning one protocol can only do things regarding that protocol, and it cannot interact with the other protocols and with specifically with the key pairs that the other protocols have. Does that kind of make sense?
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay. Yeah, and maybe I do have to mention this is a very new development. So we have been working on it for a very long time, and especially the user facing. There is currently no user facing interface for this feature. In the future, you will actually in the settings have something like a list where you can disable certain modules, and you could even like import zip files of community modules where the community could add functionality to AirGap in a secure way. But this is something that doesn't exist today. Currently, it's kind of behind the scenes because we still control everything. But the goal is to open it up to the community in the next few months.
So there, I know you guys have some news coming up. I'm gonna bury that lead just to get people listening a little bit longer. But this actually might feed into that pretty well. So there may be some people listening to this space who have some ICP is sitting on a centralized exchange like Coinbase or Binance, and they may start thinking, I've been meaning to get that off the centralized exchange, and now I want a product to store, to manage my keys for me. If they wanted to get AirGap, what is that journey look like? How would they go about getting the product, and then what is it like when they set it up?
Yeah, sure. So I think the easiest thing to do is basically you take a spare phone that you have and you don't use anymore. You wipe everything, you connect it to the internet once, and you download AirGap Vault from the App Store, either on Android or iOS store, and then you put it into airplane mode again. Then you can basically you have a phone with AirGap Vault where you can set up your mnemonic. In case you already have a mnemonic, you can import it, but be aware that the security is then, well, basically the mnemonic is just as secure as how it was before. Like if you used it, for example, in MetaMask on the computer, maybe it's a little bit less secure because it was already on the internet. So we generally recommend that people generate a new mnemonic in this step. So then you get like these 24 words and you get an ICP account, which you then share with AirGap Wallet, which you have installed on your regular phone. And that's basically already it. Then you have an ICP address and you can send your funds from Coinbase or Binance or wherever to that address. And then it will be secured by the AirGap.
That's great. That's great. And this whole journey starts at AirGap.it, right?
Yes, exactly.
You guys, your website is great. It gives a great overview of the product and makes it easy to see, easy to see like what the product does. And if you're still confused over like the reason for moving your coins off of a centralized exchange or any other place where you don't manage your keys, I think you can go through the AirGap website and find some good information. So again, that's AirGap.it. I also recommend following the AirGap Twitter handle here. Really easy to do from the Twitter space to stay up to date. And there's reason to stay up to date, right? Because you guys have some news to drop, correct?
Yes. So regarding ICP, we actually have, we would like to announce that we are now starting to work on ckBTC, on integrating that, and also staking. Because we have, after releasing the ICP integration a few weeks ago, we have heard a lot of positive feedback, and one of the most requested features was staking. So now we've basically started working on that, and hopefully we can release it in the next. I actually don't know the timeline, so I don't want to make false promises. But I would say a couple weeks.
Exciting. Very exciting. How would staking work? Can you walk us through that? Is it the staking through the NNS and you have some hotkeys, or is it staking within? Yeah, how would it work?
So I can't answer you that one because I'm not the one doing the integration, and I think we're still in the planning phase. But what we will try to do is usually we try to do it as close to the kind of we try to keep everything in our ecosystem in the AirGap apps. So we probably try to enable staking within our apps, but if there is the possibility to integrate with NNS, that is definitely also a possibility.
I think that would be preferred. I mean, for us at least, it would be nice if you guys can integrate with the NNS, because once people start staking using the NNS, either directly or with some kind of integration, then they become part of our governance system, and they can vote on proposals, which would be
I
ideal.
recently talked to our developer, and I think there is also a question around this internet identity which is also something we are looking into, which I think ties into the NNS service. Again, I'm still quite new to the ecosystem, so I don't want to say things that are incorrect, but I think we are kind of at the moment evaluating like how all these things work together and what we can do from our side. And I just heard now from one of our listeners, or one of someone from our team, that by the end of March we're actually releasing these features, and you should join or follow our Twitter to stay up to date.
By the way, if there are any engineering problems, I'm sure that you guys are already in touch with some different engineers.
Yes.
Okay. Just
Yeah,
so
it's
that
just it's always like with new integrations, it's always a mix between kind of trying to do things a certain way or trying to do it how that community wants to do it, and we are definitely always trying to work with the community to make sure it works best for the users. Yeah, so like NNS, for example, I'm it looks to me like this is kind of like a hub or a dashboard, like for many ICP related functionality. So it would definitely make sense that we have some kind of integration into that, also for potential other features in the future. Yeah, because like for us, as I mentioned in the beginning, like our core value of our product is the security aspect. So we want to enable users to store their funds safely, and also want to provide them with a simple interface as a second point. And for us, this means that integrating the vault, AirGap Vault, into the ecosystem in an easy way is basically what we're trying to do. Because that means if we could integrate it into NNS, then you can work on new features. I don't know what you have planned after staking, and I don't know what your roadmap is, but it would be great if when you release a new feature, that then people who use AirGap Vault can immediately use them, because AirGap Vault is basically just a signer. It just has access to the keys, and it needs to be able to sign transactions securely. And you can basically define on your side how those transactions look like, or what they look like. Does that make sense?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, currently, basically, the NNS is, as I said before, it's our governance system, but it somewhat started to expand, which means, and we are releasing, or not we are, but the community developers are creating their own DAOs using something called the SNS, and all of these governance tokens that will be used for these DAOs will be supported by the NNS. So that means that also a lot of computer native tokens will be launching in the next couple months and years. So that would be nice if, and all of them will have the same or very similar staking mechanisms to how you can stake ICP in the NNS. So if you stake these as SNS tokens using the NNS, using any other third-party developed solution in the governance system, then you will be able to vote on the specific DAO-related proposals, which I think is, I mean, so if people buy and hold ICP, it's nice, but what we really want is to have people use the ICP and have them participate in the governance, and not just ICP, of course, but all these upcoming new SNS tokens.
Yeah, that's great. So governance is, for example, already a good point that you brought up. So it would definitely be nice to also support governance voting within AirGap. I'm not sure what our plans are around that, but if we have NNS integration, then that should also be possible to
Yeah,
add.
there's another dApp that is already on their computer. Of course, they have the advantage of being in our computer native called Discover. Oh, sorry, two dApps, Discover and OpenChat, and they both implemented the voting system that we use in the NNS. So you can vote on NNS proposals using either Discover, which is a social media dApp, or OpenChat, which is similar to WhatsApp. I don't know how much more difficult it is to do this on a non-internet computer native application, but I mean, some of our engineers, I'm sure, have ideas on or estimates on how hard it is to implement that?
Yeah, I think that's also a great chance to plug internet, or I'm sorry, Identity Labs, which on Twitter is Identity Maxis. So for AirGap, they might be useful if you run into internet identity technical issues. They've kind of they've crossed that bridge multiple times. There might be a great partnership there for managing the user experience using your product. Andreas, so that's exciting. So just to recap, so by the end of March, you plan on ckBTC support within your product. It sounds like maybe also staking to some degree, or is the end of March more for ckBTC?
We set the goal for both of them, but I mean this is not like I don't want to promise something that we can't keep. But we did estimate the work around those both of those features, and if all goes well, then it should be by the end of March.
I'm sure it will go well. That's how crypto seems to go. Everything is goes easy. So
Yeah, yeah. But if
that's
there are
awesome.
changes in plans, you'll always hear about it on our Twitter.
Yeah. So a good a follow-up is, so if you're listening to this, you're interested in AirGap's product today, then AirGap.it is where you want to go. If you're interested in keeping up to date on the ckBTC and NNS, or I should just say staking, potentially NNS staking, maybe even SNS integration, then make sure you're following the Twitter handle just by clicking on their Twitter PFP right here and say follow. Andreas, this has been great. Is there anything else you want to touch on?
I mean, there are many things that we could talk about regarding AirGap and security, but maybe one thing that we can talk about, which is kind of an announcement that we have of something that is coming soon, is we often kind of get the question of, so how safe is it to use a spare phone? Because I mean, I could just by accident disable airplane mode and then my device is online again. And in that area, we actually have something new in the pipeline. It's not quite ready yet, but hopefully in the next few weeks, it will be ready. Which basically, this will allow you to, on that spare phone that you use only for AirGap, you can disable all of the network connectivity on a system level, and it will no longer be possible to kind of by accident enable some of the more dangerous features like network access. So that's something that we're very excited about. It's also kind of the setup process will be more straightforward, or not really straightforward because everybody knows how to install like something from the App Store, but it will be in a way that will give you more confidence in the solution because you can see that the whole system is really locked down, and it feels more like a hardware wallet because it's like you can only do that one thing afterwards, and the room for error is much smaller. And I think in a couple of weeks we'll probably have that ready and make the announcement then.
I wonder if it's possible to make some kind of hardware modifications or modifications where you actually take some parts out of the phone, which makes it impossible for it to connect to the internet. I'm sure if you do that to an iPhone, then it will just say that the phone is has an error and it's not going to function at all. It won't let you do anything. But maybe with an Android, you could.
Yeah, we have actually looked into that. We have looked into many different avenues, from producing our own hardware to like modifying existing ones. The problem is modern chips. I don't know where exactly, but I think the CPU, or like the one of the essential chips, actually has most of the networking inside. So you can't just like destroy a specific chip to disable Wi-Fi because it's like inside the chip that also has the CPU in it or something like that. So it's sadly not that easy, but I think there are actually more and more concerns around this especially, I mean, people are more concerned about, for example, camera access and microphone access when they don't want it. So I think there are a couple of phones, like the Pine phone might be one, where you have hardware toggles that you can actually, where you can disable certain features. And our hope is that in the future, this will become more popular as people become more like privacy aware.
I think you're kind of like touching on it. I'd be interested in if AirGap has like a philosophy on this, but you're kind of touching on the fact that there's this competing goals of, and this is true for all of crypto, that you want to have a good user experience so that we can expand the user base of crypto in general. But also you want people practicing good, self-custody, or basically kind of adhering to the principles, the reason why we have crypto in the first place. And so do you guys have a philosophy on how you try to manage that? It sounds like you guys are pursuing both goals at the same time, as best as technology will allow.
Which philosophy specifically? Sorry, didn't catch that.
Just that trade-off between a good user experience and then also so one side of it would be a good user experience, and then on the other side would be adhering to good practices, so like self-custody, but
Yeah. Okay, so I mean, we have already always basically our security is our number one priority. So we have never compromised security in favor of some UX feature, because sometimes it would be easier if we would just make the security a little worse, and then it would be easier. But we don't do that because we believe that security is the most important. Because it's sad sometimes because people, they don't really think about security. They don't care about security until something happens. But we want to kind of help our users to basically by not giving them a low level of security, by always giving them the highest level of security, so they don't have to worry about this. Yeah, and I mean, our philosophy is basically we want to make this self-custody available to everybody, which is also why our project is completely open source and it's free. So anybody can access it. That's also something that many people are not aware of. For example, other hardware wallets like Ledger or Trezor, there are actually many countries where they cannot easily be bought because they don't ship to those countries. And that's kind of a hurdle. Also, I mean, hardware wallets are like, I don't know, $50 to $100 or more, depending on the hardware wallet. And for some people in some countries, that's actually quite a lot of money. And with our solution, we believe that, of course, you also need a spare phone, but that's probably something you can, well, that's easier to obtain than a hardware wallet in some cases. Yeah. Yeah, so we basically just want to make self-custody available to everyone, to as many people as possible.
Yeah, if there's anything that's true, it's that the world is now kind of flush with old smartphones, based on upgrade cycles of 1 year or 2 years. So so that's a great point in terms of the hardware cost is zero if you have an old phone laying around, and so that actually might
it's
change.
not only that, it's not only cost, but it's also kind of security, because mobile phones are actually designed to be very secure. Like if you compare mobile phones against computers, like in terms of viruses, I mean, computers are, I mean, we all know, like a few years ago, there was like, you had on Windows, maybe you still need like virus software and everything. On mobile, you don't really have that because the isolation of apps is much better, and kind of it was built with security in mind. So mobile phones are actually devices that are very secure. And then there is another aspect, which is basically the supply chain. So when you buy a traditional hardware wallet, I mean, besides the fact that most of them are closed source, I mean, Trezor is actually open source, but with Ledger, for example, you don't really know what you're buying, and you buy it from a single vendor. So you don't know where these chips come from. And if anywhere in the supply chain there is someone that adds a malicious chip to the ledger or to the hardware wallet, then that could be a problem. But with our project, you can actually use any hardware that you want. So you can, if you feel like you trust Apple more, you think those devices are very secure, then you can go with an iPhone. If you think that, I don't know, like Nokia has the best security, then you can go with Nokia phones. So targeted attacks in the supply chain are very, very hard to do because people are basically free to choose whatever hardware they want. And maybe that's something I actually forgot to mention before when we were talking about how to set up AirGap. Because that's a feature that we have had since day one. It's basically secure entropy collection. So it sounds a little technical, but it's actually quite a simple thing, because it's to generate a mnemonic randomly. What the phone needs to do is it needs to choose a random number, a huge number, but it needs to be random. Now, if any of the, like there are usually chips in a device that help with collecting this randomness, but in recent years there have actually been reports that some government agencies, they have actually tried, sometimes successfully, to infiltrate these chip manufacturers and kind of manipulate this randomness collection process, which means that the mnemonic, or I mean any randomness that comes out of that chip, is not really random, but it can basically, by someone who has access to the source, they could retrace the steps and regenerate your randomness. And I mean, that's, for cryptocurrency, that's really bad, because that means those people have access to your mnemonic, to your money. So what we do at AirGap is actually we take this randomness from that chip, but at the same time, we also take the input from the camera, from the device movement during the generation step, and from the microphone. And you can also draw on the screen some random things. And we basically mash it all together over the course of, I think it's like 15 to 30 seconds. And that means that even if someone had infiltrated the device with, and the random numbers are not really random, an attacker would also have to replicate whatever your camera was filming during that time, and what the microphone was hearing, and what the user was drawing. So the mnemonic that comes out after this step, which is like a default in our setup step, is way more secure than with other wallets. And then, if you like, for the real nerds, we also have entropy collection with coin flips and dice rolls, because they are actually verifiable. So you basically roll a dice 100 times, and then that is your private key. So we also have tutorials for those of you who are interested. But it's kind of a nerd thing.
I'm sure. I'm sure through working with basically anyone within the internet computer ecosystem, whether it's somebody from Dfinity or just somebody from the community, we're all nerds at heart, and so everything you're just saying is speaking like right to our soul.
That's great. Yeah, I was super excited about that feature when I integrated it.
Yeah, I'm really impressed with the amount. I mean, just to the length that you guys are taking for true security. It shows that you guys actually truly care about that principle.
Yeah, and besides the security, we actually also care a lot about standards. We do have a couple of things in our apps that are currently not standardized. For example, we have a social recovery, which is using Shamir's secret sharing, meaning that you can take your mnemonic and split it, for example, into 5 parts, 5 shares, and then you can use any 3, for example, to reconstruct your original mnemonic. And then you can put one into the bank vault, give one to your parents, and bury one in the garden, and so on. And then if like two of those get lost, you still can recover your secret. So that's actually a pretty cool feature. But for example, here, back in the day when we did it, there was no standard around this. But now, as time went on, there was actually a standard developed by a company, and we are now in the process of adding this as well. So we are kind of, I mean, obviously we will always support recovering the old shares that people have already created in the past, but going forward, we're planning to support the hopefully soon to be standard in the ecosystem, because we really believe that intercompatibility is very important, because if AirGap would ever like well, it's not even like if it would go out of business, but it's, for example, just if the Apple doesn't allow updates anymore or something like this, it's always important that you have a plan B. And with AirGap, I mean, it's open source, so you can always build it yourself. But it's very important that we build upon standards, so you have this intercompatibility with other projects.
I love it. That's I mean, you guys are really truly thinking through this from first principles and thinking long term. So that's awesome. Is there anything else you wanted to touch on before we wrap up?
I don't know. I think there are a couple of more features that I'm personally excited about, like more technical things. So, for example, we are one of the first wallets that integrated BIP85, which is called deterministic child entropy. I don't know if you know that. It's actually a feature that I think is really, like, nobody knows about it, but it's super helpful. What it means is basically you can have one master mnemonic, or just a normal mnemonic that we all have, but then you can derive a new mnemonic from that, or actually you can derive multiple mnemonics from that. And the advantage of this is that you don't really have to back up all of them. So you just have to back up your master mnemonic, and then you can always derive new mnemonics, and you can also use them in less secure contexts. So, like if a child gets a child mnemonic is leaked, then the parent mnemonic is still secure. So that means you could, for example, have your AirGap Vault cold wallet, and then you derive one mnemonic and you put it into like a browser wallet because you want to test a new feature. But you don't really want to go through the hassle of setting up like a Shamir's social recovery for that new mnemonic, and so you can use BIP 85 to just use a child mnemonic and not worry about it anymore. So that's for all of you who have like many mnemonics and generate more and more mnemonics as you kind of test new things and so on. That's a feature you should look at. And by the way, it's a Bitcoin, it's a BIP, so it's a standard. It's not something we came up with.
And in the meantime, we actually have IC devs coming up. Want to ask a question or add a comment? You can unmute.
Yeah, I just thanks. Just had a quick comment, and I joined late, so pardon me if you've already addressed this. But one of the biggest issues we have with Ledger integration is that it really only speaks to a small number of services on the internet computer, and it would be really cool to have a way. Basically, most requests go through this encoding called CBOR. And then it has to be signed by the CBOR request has to be signed. And I was just curious if your solution had a solution for that, where we would be able to sign those requests more easily when we're using our applications, as opposed to having to. I mean, there's just really no way to use it right now. Use Ledger with the internet computer other than FIDO to logging in, but once you're logged in, every request is sort of authenticated. So I was wondering if y'all had a solution for that, or if you had discussed that or not.
I'm not aware of So I didn't get what is the problem regarding the CBOR encoding, because I mean it sounds to me like you could encode anything in such a request and then the ledger could just sign it. So, but apparently that doesn't work. So what's the problem there?
That, I mean, I don't know. I'm not a developer on the Ledger software team for Dfinity. I don't know if the Dfinity guys know, but I know that every time we sort of request and say, hey, we'd like to do this, there's some pushback that it's either impractical or wouldn't work or something along those lines. And you kind of have to, as you know, they're your competitor, right? You kind of have to, if you want to publish to Ledger, it's not easy and it takes a long time. So I was just curious if there might be an easier solution that we could use with, or if you had experimented at all with the Internet Computer with signing, transactions on a per request basis even.
So we haven't experimented with it, but what you describe is definitely something that we want to do and support, because that's basically kind of our philosophy. Let's call it, is that the AirGap Vault is like the secure signing device, and then other apps should be the ones kind of doing the interaction with the blockchain and like these kind of things. And in the end, those apps should output some kind of data that needs to be signed. And in like our goal would be that this data can then be signed to AirGap Vault. Sent to AirGap Vault. It can be inspected, signed, and sent back. Now I can't, as I said, I think we haven't experimented with this in the ICP ecosystem, so I can't promise you anything. But for example, we have recently launched or integrated with MetaMask. So now with Ethereum. So now you can actually do that in the MetaMask, in the Ethereum or EVM ecosystem, where basically you can use any EVM-based chain to prepare a request, and then the vault can just sign it, because it's signing it is a standard. So that's definitely something we'd like to support for ICP as well. But as I mentioned, I'm not sure. Maybe there are some other technical challenges I'm not aware of. And by the way, that's also something maybe or that some people ask regarding limitations of AirGap, or specifically the QR codes that we use, because QR codes, of course, the size of the data that can be transferred is limited. But actually, we use something called animated QR codes or fragmented QR codes, which means that the data is actually, you can basically transmit an arbitrary size using QR codes, and they will be just the data will be split up into smaller chunks, and it will show you a series of QR codes, which also has some error correction, so it's quite efficient to transmit. So
All right,
even
great, thanks.
payload,
We'll have to give it a try and see what
sure,
the issues
yeah,
might
I
be.
mean, maybe you can also reach out to us and we can have a chat privately to see what exactly you want to do and how we can support that.
That'd be great.
Awesome. Thanks, Austin, for jumping up, and hope you guys connect. It sounds like AirGap, you guys are going to have a lot of connections within the IC ecosystem. So excited to see partnerships that come from that. Well, we're coming up to about an hour on this space. Just wanted to thank you again, Andreas Gossman from AirGap. You guys got a clear dedication to crypto and security and first principles, and so we thank you guys for that, and we look forward to hearing more news about upcoming ckBTC and staking. Let me turn it over to you and Andrew to see if there's any last words you guys want.
Yeah, so thanks a lot for having me, or having us. It was fun to talk with you guys, and yeah, I'm looking forward to working with you over the next months, years, who knows. And yeah, I'm very excited because it looks like we like the projects, but also like the people behind the projects. They seem to have interests that are very well aligned, and that's always very important when you when you have partnerships like that. So yeah, thanks for having me.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, I think it's security is very important, and even though sometimes some of us don't put it as a priority in self custody, it's key. So we really appreciate you doing what you do and also jumping on this space and answering all of our questions. So thanks a lot, and really excited for if you guys have an NNS integration, that I would be psyched. Yeah. Also, ckBTC, I'm really looking forward to. It's gonna be really cool.
Okay. Well, I hope we don't disappoint you. I'll talk to the developer afterwards and tell him what we should be working on.
All right. Thanks again to the AirGap team, and I wish you guys success. And again, follow the AirGap Twitter handle to stay up to date on all this exciting news. And we'll see you guys around and see everyone in the community for the next Dfinity hosted Twitter Spaces. Thanks again.
Thanks, guys. Cheers.
Bye, guys. Bye.